Hello, everyone, and Happy New Year 2022. We welcome you all to the Happiness Journey with Dr. Dan podcast, where every journey is worth living. My name is Dr. Dan, and I'm your host for today's episode. I am a cognitive behavior psychotherapist specializing in anger management issues, both court-appointed and private, marriage counseling, dissociative disorders, narcissistic personality disorders, depression, anxiety, dream analysis, and also provide life, business, and retirement coaching support. I provide individual one-on-one session and also do group settings. If you need any assistance, reach out to DMV Therapy and Coaching Services at 301-325-1550. And our website is lifecoachdanamzalek.com. Today, I'm very excited to have our 9th episode of season 4, a very special guest and author, Annette Marinaccio. Now, just like every of my past episode, I will leave it up to the guests to properly introduce themselves, as no one can do a better job. Annette, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dan, and thank you so much for having me. I feel very honored to participate. So my name is Annette Marinaccio, as you said, and my background is that I'm a CPA. I am a healthcare executive, and I live in New York, and I absolutely love what I do. The interesting thing is that after my mother-in-law died, which was 2006, so after she died, she was intent on proving to me that there was an afterlife. And that took a little bit for me to accept. It's not that I was skeptical per se, but I certainly had never thought about the afterlife before that. And I sort of thought when you die, you die, and that was it. And once she proved to me that, okay, I'm still here, then I was like, I don't even understand this. If we go on, then what is this life about? What are we doing here on earth? And so I spent about 4 years really entrenched and obsessed with everything metaphysical. So for a CPA, I really had to get my head around this whole topic and make sense of it. And when I was done with that, I sort of felt very comfortable that I had a great handle on life. I could leave my life in a different way. I sort of understood why we're here to a large extent. I understood enough about the afterlife to satisfy me. And I just sort of kept that, part of me aside. But as the universe would have it, I was placed in the path oftentimes after that in front of sort of people that would benefit from a piece of what I had learned. And so I found myself sort of going through that library I had accumulated in my brain and coming up with little tidbits of information that turned out to be very, very beneficial for people in their time of like need or grief or curiosity or whatever. And then I started having people say to me, oh my goodness, you helped me so much, which for a nurse or a doctor, they may be used to that, but for an accountant, I wasn't really used to sort of changing people's life, So they were like, geez, you really helped me so much. You changed my life. And then at one point I said, I think I'm really meant to put this into a digestible format so that everybody can just sort of understand what I know, what I learned. And that's what I did. So about a year ago, I wrote the book, Your Soul Focus. And the subtitle is You Believe in the Afterlife, Don't You? And it's done very, very well because it's a very practically written book. I mean, I'm an accountant, so it sort of makes sense. So it's a practically written book about a very elusive topic, which is, spirit. And it chronicles my journey, so sort of how I was able to get my head around the fact that we do go on. And then also, more importantly, how the afterlife pertains to our current life here. Basically there are about, I would say 25 significant takeaways in the book that pertain to absolutely everybody's life, because I didn't want the book to just really be about my journey. I really wanted it to be almost a book that people, and I've heard people have told me they've done this, that people would highlight, oh, I never thought of this before. I want to apply this to my life. Oh, I never thought of this before. So, and it's done that. So I'm really just blessed to, have been able to sort of publish it.
Wow. Now, I'm sure that as a CPA, you save a lot of people headache from the IRS. So you help people every single day, and that's just in that aspect. But now,
But yeah.
aspect of it is said that despite the physical death, consciousness remains, which means that our soul kind of continue navigating before. I mean, in some religion, reincarnation exists, happens. They believe in it. Now, in the case of the signs that your mother-in-law gave you after her physical death, are these signs that a lot of other people who experience the same as you can at least provide some proof that this happened? Yeah, she's right. Like I know before the podcast, you and I discussed about a neurosurgeon, Ibn Alexander, who had a near-death experience because he had a very severe meningitis infection, and he was able to come back, and he went on Oprah Winfrey, and he talked about his journey. Now, what signs did your mother-in-law give you to prove you that there is an afterlife?
So, and this is very interesting because I've read, in the time I was really entrenched in the metaphysical area, I read a lot of books. And when you read books about people who've had near-death experiences like Dr. Alexander, you end up thinking, oh my God, that's fascinating. But it's because it doesn't pertain directly to you, it's someone else's account.
Okay.
And so you sort of always question, I wonder how much of that is, real or not, or whatever. And I actually dedicated a part of my book to signs, I'll say, or messages from the other side, because what I tell everybody in my book is, although you can sit around and wait for signs, what I learned is that you can also be very specific and ask for a specific sign. And if they can get you that sign within about 10 days, 2 weeks, it's almost a science, they will. And so I'm going to give you some examples of what happened after I wrote the book so that you can see, and your listeners can see, that it's not a matter of me just saying, this is what happened to me. I intentionally titled the book Your Soul Focus because I want this to be something that pertains to everybody living a more fulfilled life. And so in the book, I wrote, I have probably 3 or 4 specific signs that I asked for, because once I understood there was an afterlife, and once I started understanding more about it, there was a time where I decided, I think you can ask for something and be very, very specific, something that you can't discount. So I asked my mother-in-law to show up on New Year's Eve, a specific day, New Year's Eve, and show me something. I said, it wasn't even specific, something that I couldn't deny. And her name was Lucille. And what happened on New Year's Eve is I was sitting there, and we were watching TV, and the New Year's Eve special with my in-laws, the New Year's Eve special broke, and the news came on. I guess it always comes on at 11 o'clock. I had not really realized it. And the reporter's name was Lucy or Lucille Wang or something like that. And so all over the TV was Lucille, Lucille, Lucille. And then there was an ad right after that with for a show that had an actress in it called Lucy Liu. And they were just Lucille and Lucy and Lou all over. And I was like, oh my goodness. So that's when I started realizing, I asked her to show up at a specific time. What if I asked for a specific thing? And I started that too. I asked for specific things. But you may not get exactly what you're thinking, but I asked her for an orange monarch butterfly. Show me an orange, and it was in April that I asked for it, and orange butterflies are not around in April. But I asked for this specific sign, and the next week I was reading the newspaper, the Sunday paper, and the life section of the newspaper was all about gardens on Long Island, which is where I live, and the front page of it was this big orange monarch butterfly. So and I saved the paper because I was like, oh my gosh, because that's when I started realizing you can ask for specific things. So I want to give you this other example because it's just 2 examples. After I wrote the book, I've had a lot of people, because it's such a personal topic, reach out to me and say, my goodness, you've helped so much, or this gave me a totally different perspective, or whatever. And then one woman said that her mother died in April of 2021 when I wrote the book, due to COVID. And when she read the book, she was, absolutely distraught. She read my book and she saw about asking for the specific sign. So at her gravesite, she was asking her mother to show her a blue cameo, like a cameo pin. And she figured make it blue, make it really difficult, because I say in the book, be very specific. And about a week later, she's thumbing through a magazine and there's an ad for cameos, and there are 4 cameos and one of them is blue. Now, I don't think I've ever seen a blue cameo in my life, let alone, a week after she asks for it at the gravesite. But so she was like, oh my God, my mother's really here. I was like, I know. And then another woman reached out to me from the middle of the country, which I was just so flattered by this. And she said, I read your book and I want to let you know what happened. She said that her brother had died 30 years prior, and she was sitting with her 10-year-old daughter, and she told her 10-year-old daughter about, let's ask Uncle, I forget his name, Uncle Jake, for the sign, the specific sign. And so the daughter said, I'd like to see Finn the cat. And so her mother, who's the one writing to me, said, who's Finn the cat? And she said, last summer, so almost a year ago, last summer, there was a cat that came in the backyard, and Grandma and I looked at his tag and it said Finn. And I'd love to see Finn the cat again. I haven't seen Finn. And her mother says to her, that's too specific a sign. Let's go with a cat that is Finn's color. What color was the cat? And so the little girl says orange and white. So, so they put it out to the universe. And the brother comes through in flying colors. That evening, the woman goes out to put her garbage out in the backyard. She hears a little meow from behind the garbage can. She moves the garbage can. There's a orange and white cat there. She runs, the cat's not been in the backyard that the daughter has seen for 10 months. She runs in to get her 10-year-old daughter and says, oh my goodness, look, the cat's there. They go, they look at the tag and it's Finn. So, so you don't really have to just sort of wait for signs or read other people's accounts. You can ask for signs yourself. And the other thing is, after I started becoming entrenched in the metaphysical, what I found is that I can't even say dozens, it must be thousands of people have their own personal accounts. They do. I mean, it was just anecdote after anecdote. It was like, and I asked for this, or I found this, or I saw this, or a cardinal landed on my shoulder. I couldn't get the cardinal to leave, or, a bird was on my head. The bird, right after my mother died. There are so many accounts that people are having every single day where the other side is sending distinct signs that they have or haven't asked for, that that's my story on signs.
So do you think there's a somewhat of a connection for those who actually hire people who can talk to the spirits after they passed? Is it something that is real? I mean, they ask question and they could hear something about what the spirit says, and and that person who is grieving for a missing relative, they say, yeah, that's true. This is the experience that we had together. Is that something that is real, or is it just for them to be able to kind of ask specific question, extract the information that they need, and make it believe they're actually talking to the spirits?
Absolutely real. And I will say this, because the whole, I guess, work or profession of mediumship has sometimes a negative connotation, because there are some people who do exactly as you say. They ask questions and they like cold reading, and then they grab information and they take advantage of the grieving people. But there are plenty that are absolutely real and on the money. And I wrote it in the book. If there are 100 mediums and 99 are fraudulent, and one is real, just one, and you think, geez, that's so bad. How could 1 out of 100 be only one is real? But all you need is one that's real, because if it's for that one person and then into your deceased loved one, then it doesn't matter that 99 are fraudulent. It means that your deceased loved one can get through to somebody.
Yes.
So that one that is real is all that matters. Now, I will also say I volunteer and now serve on the board for an organization that I discovered when I started becoming aware of the afterlife. I met them in 2007. It's called Forever Family Foundation. And we actually certify mediums. They go through an intense certification process. So there are hundreds of mediums that apply, and only a dozen or so that really make it through the certification process. So for sure, there are some people that are marginally skilled in that way or not skilled at all in that way and like to purport they are, but there are certainly enough very proficient mediums that I feel absolutely that their mediumship is real.
Okay. And so would you believe those little games or tools like the Ouija board and all that? I know like a lot of people say that, hey, it may be real or there's something or some spirit talking to them through a board. Is that something that is just like made up, or do medium?
No, I think it's real.
It's real. Okay. And but
Yeah, I would say it's real because I'm sorry.
go ahead. No, it's real in which aspect? Because again, with all the quacks that's out there, they make it believe that this is a tool that is a way for them to communicate with the afterlife. But for those who actually are real, is that a tool that they will use to be able to talk to people? Or it's just like a game?
No, they wouldn't. They don't need that tool or use that tool. And you're right, for the fraudulent people out there, they may use that. It's real in the way that if you wanted to tap into a spirit, maybe not your particular spirit, spirits can move things. So if they can, they will move that thing and they will spell things out for you. But a really good medium does not need a tool. They are the channel. The words come through them to the sitter, and it usually resonates a lot. And actually, one of the first things that opened my eyes to this entire thing was through a medium. I mean, when my mother-in-law was insistent on coming through a medium to me, she was insistent. I was at a dinner and afraid to take the microphone when a woman came over to me. I was viewing it like a magic show, but she came over to me and she said, "I have Lucille here." Now, Lucille is my mother-in-law's name. It was on the money, but I was too afraid to take the microphone, and I didn't take it. And she went on to say, it looks like she died of like a stomach cancer. My mother-in-law had died of pancreatic, and it looks like she died of stomach cancer. And I was too afraid to take the microphone. So she retreated out, she gave up and started reading other people, but came back because my mother-in-law was like, "I'm not giving up." And so she came back to me, or my area. I was sitting at a table, so my table. And she said, "This woman is still here. If it's not Lucille, it's something with an L, like Lou, and she's got dark black hair," which my mother-in-law had. So finally I was like, "Oh, all right, let me take the microphone." And then I proceeded to have a reading like you would see on TV, where she read, there were evidential items that I could not refute, that nobody else would know. Okay. And I was playing in my head like an accountant. How did I pay for this? Did I give them a credit card? Like, what's going on? Did I say my name? I had made the reservations. I said Annette, party of 3. I only said my first name. How does this woman know all of this? And by the end of that one evening, I was convinced that there may be something to this afterlife thing, and that I had to do more research to be comfortable with it.
Now, in your experience, Annette, do those spirits on the afterlife can demonstrate their presence with some telekinetic powers, with some, moving things around when you actually ask it to see if they are actually present during whatever session with the medium? Is that something that you have tried to investigate a little bit further, or this is something that is, over and beyond what your topic and content is all about?
Well, that's interesting you say that, because during the time I was trying to learn the metaphysical end of things, I was pretty intent. I mean, in all my life, everything I've done, I've always been very intentionally based or whatever. And so I was like intent that I was going to be able to see the other side. All mediums will say, it's not just something we have. Anybody has this ability. Everybody has this ability if you meditate and pray. And so I actually, I'm going to say over a year, I meditated, and it wasn't like, people say it's very hard to meditate. Your brain is thinking of so many other things. I found it actually quite easy to meditate. I can get myself to nothing fairly easily and sit there on nothing but breath or whatever. So it wasn't like I was having a problem thinking of all my grocery shopping I had to do, or work things going on, or the kids, or I was like at nothing for every day for over a year, just hoping to get a glimpse of the other side. And I never had a glimpse of the other side. So I do believe that there are facets of people that can achieve that, ability, have that ability. But I think it probably has to do with how left or right brain oriented you are, because the left side's the analytical side, the right side's the creative. And I think I'm really, really entrenched in the left side. So I couldn't get myself to the other side. Whereas I know other people who don't have the ability naturally, but once they start meditating, they get glimpses of the other side or deceased loved ones. And even though they would not consider themselves psychic or a medium. So I think though that it doesn't change the fact that, and maybe it added to the fact that I was able to put this book together and help people in a very different way. Because it's interesting, after I wrote the book, my friend of mine said, geez, your mother-in-law must have been such a strong individual. And I was like, she wasn't that particularly strong. She was strong, but not that strong. And she said, well, you guys, the two of you must have been so close. And I was like, we were close. We're definitely close, close and loving, but I wouldn't say that much closer to anybody else. I don't know. And then she said, well, then why did she pick you to come through to? And I said, I don't know. And then she thought about it and she came back to me and she goes, I know why. Because she knew you're so practical that you'd write a book. And I'm like, something, that's true. So even though I never had the ability to actually see and tap into the other side at will, like other people do, I think that's part of the reason that my book is different or helpful to ordinary people, is because I'm an ordinary person and I don't really have that psychic ability, yet I was able to prove to myself that the afterlife exists and that you can tap into the other side when needed. And so to put that in like a practical format that anybody can just digest, I think has been helpful. So I don't have that skill set, like you said, although I did try for it. I don't really have that, but I think I was not meant to.
Do you think, Annette, that there's any, not deadline necessarily, because I'm not sure if it's the right word to use, deadline, but the fact that after a certain period of time, you will not feel their presence? So let's say you mentioned about the uncle that was there for 30 years and you were able to still communicate and ask them what you're looking for. But is there after a while that it is going to stop? They will no longer be present?
No, it's forever. And I'll also say this, and this is a little bit mind-blowing, which this is my own belief, and I think even some spiritual people may not agree with it, but after a lot of research, it resonates with me. I think that our soul is very complex and complicated, and that we only take to earth the percent of our soul that we need to accomplish our purpose.
Okay.
So I believe but we're born with these kind of dunce caps on. So we think that this is us, that of course, this is 100% of me and my soul. But it's not. It's 100% of your human body, but I think it's only the portion of your soul. So a portion of your soul is actually right now on the other side still. You're still, yes. So it's like, I've heard, I'm not a science person, but when I've explained it to people who are science people, they say it's similar to string theory or quantum physics, but that your soul is multidimensional. So we here, and that's where ego comes in, And ego has like a negative connotation, sort of like I'm egotistical, but it really, in its purest form, it's not a negative thing at all. It's just that it's sort of Einstein's theory of relativity. We can relate to only what we can relate to. And so egotistically, we can only relate to what's going on here because that's how we're purposefully born. We're born with sort of blinders on to the other side, because if we did not have them, we'd be so distracted, we would never accomplish our purpose here. And so we think that this is us. This is me. This is 100% me. And we can only sort of perceive or conceptualize us having 100% of our soul here. But I believe that's actually only a portion of our soul. And so there is still a portion of our soul on the other side, as well as souls of our departed. And so we will always be able to tap into them, whether we're on the other side or this side.
It's interesting what you mentioned about the string theory, or M theory, which is the multiverse theory. Again, it is a theory because no one can actually prove that there are all multi-universes out there. We look at the universe like a bubble, and what's out there, something that, again, we cannot even go further than our galaxy, the Milky Way. So a lot of people say, a lot of scientists say, well, Andromeda, which is the closest other galaxy, or Sombrero, which is the other galaxy very close to us, if they're close, and now when we talk about dark energy, are they, I mean, the dark energy is what pulls the galaxies away from each other, but yet they're so close to each other, are they going to merge eventually? Because this is what happened with some galaxies. Now, if we look at what you mentioned about the left or right side of the brain, the left is more like the logical side. The right is more the creative side. So does it mean that the left side there's something in their mind they cannot really understand the fact that if you put yourself in a trance, like a meditative trance, can you really communicate with the outside world? Because maybe it's like you're a CPA, for you it's numbers, for you it's like more logical side. It's hard to really wrap your mind into believing that you can actually put yourself in a state where you could depart from your body and like navigate in the universe and see because some people have done out-of-body experiences. They could say what's on the other side of the world, what's happening right now, and then they come back into their physical body and they could explain what they've seen. But then again, is that something real? Is that something that you could really fathom and really understand how that actually works? Because your brain is not set to be able to see things the same way that the right side of the brain can do. So how do you merge, or how do you build a bridge between the right and the left side of the brain? Or can people actually do that?
I think they can. There are all kinds of experiments out there with being able to sort of accentuate your right side brain waves if you're very left side oriented, or the other way around, because I guess living a balanced life is probably a little bit easier for a lot of people than living all right or all left. But it's interesting what you had mentioned about that telepathic situation. That reminds me of something that I don't have fully at my fingertips, but there was I think it was in the 1950s, there was a United States government spy, I think he was, and he basically was hired by the government, our government, the United States, to telepathically, because he was psychic, go into the Russian base where they were building planes and bombs and things, and explain what they were doing. And he was able to do it. There's volumes and volumes of things that he was a United States, sitting in United States soil, but he was able to go into that trance and could go to a specific place and tell the United States government what was going on over in Russia, in particular, how they're building things. And I remember reading that during the time I was trying to understand telepathy and metaphysics. And I was like so fascinated by it. It was just amazing. So yeah, I think that some people just, they have the ability easier than others. I sort of connected to, and I think I put this in the book too, it's like playing the guitar. I think that, if you gave me a guitar and you gave me guitar lessons. After maybe 10 lessons, I could squeak out some horrible song that you'd probably hate listening to, but you might call it a song. But you can take another person and you could give them a guitar, same 10 lessons, and then they can play you a ballad that would bring you to tears. And so what's that about, right? And I think that's about, to some extent, your innate abilities. It's like in your DNA, or what you're born with. And I think we're all here on earth with different strengths. And so for that person that can play the guitar the way they do, that's a strength that they have. And I, for instance, being left brain, don't have. On the flip side, I'm a healthcare executive and a CPA, and I'm pretty good at what I do at my work. I enjoy it and I'm pretty good at it. And I don't know that the person playing the guitar, if they were taking the same courses that I did to learn what I can apply now in my work life, would they be able to do that? Probably not. So everybody, this melting pot of a universe, we're all here with our own specific purpose and our own specific set of skills to achieve that purpose. It's by design. It's not haphazard. And so I think some people have that ability, some people don't, but that's okay.
And do you believe, Annette, that we all, as you mentioned, we all have a purpose in this life, we all have a mission, and those who passes away before the mission is accomplished, do you think they reincarnate into a body to be able to complete their mission?
So that's a great question, because you might think that people who die prematurely, early, die before they achieve their purpose, but that is absolutely not the case. I'll give you my analogy on that in a minute, but everybody achieves their purpose before they go back, except if somebody dies by suicide. And only in certain die by suicide cases. Sometimes if you die by suicide because you're terminally ill, that is viewed differently. You probably have achieved your purpose here. But if you die by suicide by accident, an accidental overdose, or you are really not in the right state of mind and you die by suicide, then you may not have achieved your purpose here, and you will want to come back and get it right next time. But in terms of people who die prematurely, because that is such a difficult topic, especially for like a parent who's lost his child, and you think, how in the world can I ever go on? I have this analogy that people, and I put it in the book, and a lot of people, especially people who've lost children, have reached out to me to say, I've never thought of it that way. Now that you've written it, it makes sense to me based on my circumstances. And I thank you for writing it. So this is my example. Let's say, I have to start by saying, it's not about this side. Again, we're very ego driven because of these dunce caps we're born with, because it's our only option. It's our only choice. It's by design so that we can complete our skill set here, but it's not about here. Here is a teeny, 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 tiny fraction of our soul's existence. Mm-hmm. And it's actually not that it's not about here, but it's way more about the other side. And so it's really important to us, our souls, and our loved ones' souls, that we achieve our purpose here. We're all supposed to be achieving our purpose. And our purpose may not be huge and grand, like I'm going to be, a very famous person and impact, millions of people, like the royalty in England or famous superstars. It may not be a grand purpose. It can be a very narrow purpose, and it can actually be a purpose that has nothing to do with you and has to do with somebody else. But at the end of the day, we all come here with a purpose. So we choose three things before we come here. We choose pretty much how we're going to be raised. So the family we're being born into. We choose our purpose, and we choose how we're headed back. It can be like a freak accident in our 50s, long drawn out illness in our 70s, but we sort of choose those three things before we come here. We also travel in soul groups. Mm-hmm. And the objective, the game, is to try and raise the vibrational energy of your entire soul group. So raise your level of light. We're all light energy. So raise your level of light. And the soul groups have about I'm going to say 1 to 200 souls in them, and you travel together in and out of reincarnations on Earth and not, and even on the other side, just to sort of raise your vibrational energy. Now, let's say that in that soul group, there's someone that's maybe lagging behind a little bit. So the whole soul group's ready to move up to another sort of layer of light, but there's 1 or 2 people that are just not there yet.
Okay.
So there can be a pact that one of the more light people in that soul group say to the, let's say 2 people that are a little bit lagging behind in their light power. And they say, listen, the 3 of us are going to go back to Earth. The 2 of you are going to be my parent. I'm going to be born as your child. And at 5 years old, I'm going to die of leukemia.
Wow. Okay.
That's my purpose. Because you are going to have to live on Earth where feelings are horribly intense, negative and positive. Our feelings here are horribly intense. Our human emotions are horribly intense compared to what they are on the other side. And you'll have to hopefully live your earthly life getting past my death.
But isn't that a curse? Isn't that a punishment? Because they lag
It's
behind.
a gift.
But you bring them back on Earth for them to suffer.
It's a gift, because the only way to stretch your soul is to get through that. You basically fast track your growth. You fast track your growth. So now you're back on the other side and you've lived this very difficult life, but let's say you've lived through that horrible, I can't even say live through, because you don't live through grief, but you live with it. You learn to live with it. And you learn to live with it. And maybe you've even helped other people with their grief situations. Now you get back to the other side and it's like, high five. You've done what you're supposed to do. Now we can all move up our level of light, because the human experience is the only place that you can fast track your soul's growth. Because on the other side, it really is all niceties. It's very positive. Your growth there is prayer, music, art. Those are the things that stretch your soul. Here, you have a real depth of wonderful positive feelings and a real depth of difficult feelings. And if you can learn to live your life with those difficult feelings, you will have stretched your soul in a greater way than is ever possible on the other side.
Wow.
And so somebody, that 5-year-old, will say, I will sacrifice, myself for the soul group's greater good. And let's hope that you do, your part of it, your 2 less light souls. And so when people say, I don't know why he died early or she died early, or they're grieving, very, very often, the parents say that the child, and the child could be 25 years old, that the child had that child was always a little bit special. They're always a little bit different. I'm not totally shocked. They seem like an old soul. There's many times parents will say that about deceased loved ones who died prematurely. So that's an interesting thing about death. If you sort of say, and again, ego has a bad connotation, but I'm going to take this human ego off. And I think, even though I can only relate to what I can relate to, which is these 4 walls, but really it's not about these 4 walls. You open your mind to other possibilities, which help you to view what's going on in life on Earth in a very, very different manner. When you think of a child dying as not a curse,
yes,
but a gift to stretch your soul, very different way to look at it.
But for parents who are actually going through this suffering, Annette, it's very hard for them to grasp that perspective from a person that is not really dealing with the same pain and suffering as a parent who lost a 5-year-old because of leukemia or because any other. Imagine it's St. Jude Hospital where they deal with the kids' cancer. Imagine how many parents are going through that pain and saying, well, we brought this kid to the world and now God wants to take it back. Now, is this kid as special because God wants this soul back and reincarnated into another physical body? Or their mission or their purpose was so short-lived that how can someone just wrap their mind around it, especially the parents, to say in 5 years or in 2 years or in 6 months, they were able to accomplish their mission, if that was the case.
Right.
It's very,
Right.
so how can anyone find your book, Annette?
Oh, so my book is Your Soul Focus. I have it on Amazon and barnesandnoble.com, and the paperback also. I also have it on Audible.
Okay.
So my objective really wasn't, it's not a money-making thing. I have a wonderful job and I love my job. It was really more to get the word out. So once I made the money back that it cost me to put the book together,
Yes.
I decided to spring for a narrator to put it on Audible. So I have it on Audible now. And I have a website, AnnetteMarinaccio.com.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, that is all the time that we have for today's episode. I do appreciate you taking the time out of your very busy schedule as a CPA to join us. And thank you so much for participating and inspiring our many listeners with your incredible story. Now, we hope that you have all enjoyed today's episode. And I'm also very excited about the many upcoming guests that we have scheduled for season 4 of the Happiness Journey podcast, filled with incredible stories just like the one that you listened to today. Now, here are some concluding words of wisdom. In our many long journeys in life, we feel at times that we want to quit, give up, feeling down and beat up by life. The key is not to quit. The worst moments are usually followed by the most beautiful silver linings. You have to stay strong. Remember to keep your head up and remain hopeful. If Thomas Edison had to quit on the light bulb, we might not experience his invention today. If other inventors out there would have given up on their ideas, chances are we won't be taking advantage of their technology or product today. They felt they were a reason to push, and you should too. My name is Dr. Dan Amzalag, and you may all keep pursuing your amazing journey in life.